Hi guys, it's Liana here and I'm super excited to share with you my latest thrift find, only $18 from Savers. I've done this transformation as a dress into a new dress and a top. So without further ado, I am going to show you how I did it. So first of all, what I did was I marked in where I wanted to shorten the dress. And you might be wondering, what are these letters A and B? I'll explain it to you. Let's just rewind and explain to you what these letters signify. So the letter A is the offcut of the bottom old dress, which I turned into the new sleeves. The letter A throughout this video, it will mean that it was the old bottom offcut of the dress. Next is letter B. So the letter B is also again the old dress where we have done the cutting of the bottom of the hem and turned it into a new hem. Next is the letter C. So the letter C is the old sleeves in which we have cut and has now become the center front of our new top in which we've made. Lastly, it's the letter D. Letter D is the remaining offcut of the old skirt hem. So this hem is now being used as a new back panel of the top. Without further ado, continuing on with our disassembling of the dress, I will do the alterations of what I want to be changed. Here we've cut off the sleeves into the front bodice of a new top. Here I'm just dissecting what it will look like when we sew it together, just pre-planning. The polka dots won't match up accurately, but I think they look fine still. Moving on to the offcut of the bottom dress hem, I am just unpicking and creating a singular piece from what we gathered from the overall piece. Using the single piece, I am going to use it later, which you will soon see. Back to the offcut bottom hem of the dress, I am going to cut it in half and use it as sleeves. Here I am just draping to see what it looks like. Next I am going to sew at the center front bodice. Creating darts in place so that there's shaping around the bust is really important and that it stays symmetrical on both the left and right side. Going back to the back pieces in which we had recently created, I am going to cut them in the same rectangle shape so that they are symmetrical. Next step is overlocking both the front and back pattern pieces in which we just created. After overlocking, we will move on to doing the hem of each of the patterns. This is what the overall pattern looks like with the back and front pattern pieces combined together. In a bird's eye quick shot, this is what it looks like. My next step is to add bias binding to the edges of the sleeve. Essentially what a bias binding is a narrow strip of fabric cut and it is used to bind edges for decoration. Yes, there's a lot of bias binding in this one, but it looks good and it's worth it. Using a matching color white always makes a clean finish look really nice. Next, I am doing the bias binding on both the back and front panel patterns in which we just created before. It's important that we iron and press this so that it looks new and all the seams are seamlessly connected properly. Finally, we are moving on to adding an open-ended zip. And one of the last few steps of the tops is adding the sleeves to the front and back bodice. What I'm doing here is sewing at 5 centimeters at the edges of the sleeve to the edges of the front and back, done at an even measurement so that it looks symmetrical. Moving on to the dress part, I am just doing some simple alterations so that the dress looks a bit more modern and chic. What I'm doing here is adding darts so that the dress looks fitted around my bust. After doing that, I will do the lining where I will overlock the raw edges at where we had initially cut the hem off at. Doing the same thing on the outer shell of the fabric, and then sewing at a 3.5 centimeters seam at the lining of the hem. The lining normally needs to be shorter than the outside fabric, and so you'll see soon I will be doing about 1.5 centimeters hem at the outside fabric. After the hem is done, I am moving on to marking in where I want to sew the dots in which we had early marked in with pins. Making sure that they're both the same length, 11 centimeters on each side, I am able to go ahead and sew the dots in place. After the dots have been put in place, I will remove the belt loops as I won't be making a belt for this new dress. Doing the same thing on the other side as well. This is what it looks like. Sealing off the hole in which it had created. That is now finished. Finally, at one of our last steps, I am adding a bias binding again to the armhole of the dress. And that is the end of my transformation. This is what the before looks like. And this is what the after looks like. I hope you guys enjoyed watching my video. Thank you for watching. Until next time.